This year, St. Paul welcomed the first woman and first Asian American to lead the city, St. Paul Mayor KAOHLY HER. She's not new to Minnesotans. She's a member of the DFL, where she served from 2019 to 2025 in the Minnesota House of Representatives. And Mayor KAOHLY HER joins me now on Life Unscripted. It's so great to meet you.
I'm so glad to be on your show.
Yeah, you've been doing a great job. And as you might know, I've been focusing a lot on what's been happening in Minneapolis. We know with Operation Metro Surge, but I haven't really checked in with St. Paul. How is the city doing?
Yeah, and I'm really appreciative that you're lifting up our stories in St. Paul, because the truth is that everything that Minneapolis went through, St. Paul went through. And we just had less visibility because I use less colorful language than my friend across the river does. And, and I think that, our communities just reacted a little bit differently, So though the two shootings happened in Minneapolis, we were experiencing a huge number of raids. We were experiencing huge occupation, a large number of ICE in our neighborhoods too. And, like everything that was happening in Minneapolis was happening here. So I really appreciate you shining the spotlight a little bit on St. Paul, because, St. Paul is hurting as well.
It's still going on in some respects. We know that the response from the community, there were 100,000 people at the No Kings rally. I know you were speaking. What was that like to see that?
That was quite amazing. We were already hearing how Minnesotans were showing up for each other, but to see us all in that one space and the sheer number of us was just, it was everything I believed that we could be and everything that I know that we stand for. And it was so heartwarming and just powerful to be together in that space.
I know you have personally delivered meals to people, and you've unlocked doors to a lot of the mercados, and so you have been really involved. Tell me about what your experience was like. We know what happened with the city, but you personally.
Everybody saw what happened, at the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. But the truth is that what we were experiencing, especially in the impacted communities like mine, we were experiencing it, almost a year beforehand, right away when Trump got into office. Because I remembered my first meeting that I pulled to have representatives from ICE come meet with me was when I was still at the legislature in April of 2025. Because at that time, my community was already coming to me saying, we have people that were targeted, we have people who are getting taken, we are, there were weekends in which there was just, people were staying home because they were afraid of what was happening. So I remembered at that time, I asked a couple of state representatives who represented very diverse areas if they wanted to meet with me, and and I could have ICE come talk to us. And so it was me, Representative Perez-Rega, Hollins, Lee, Feist. And so we all met with a representative from ICE, and I remembered even leaving that meeting back in April of 2025 being super angry. And I remembered saying to the representative, I said, so are you done? Did you get all of the criminals and people with national security threat? Because it seems like you're just going after normal, everyday people now. That was already happening in April of 2025. And so by the time everybody else was experiencing it, our communities, I had relatives, I had friends, I had family members, extended family who had already being targeted, people having been detained, people having been taken. So it's been going on for a long time for my community.
Do you have any idea how many people were taken from ICE and who, what some of their status may be?
You would think that somebody who holds some kind of official power like mine that we would know. At that time, we couldn't get any information from the federal government then. And even now, I've never been given a count as to who's been taken and how many people have been taken. We just do not get that information. So it's I hear individual cases, I hear anecdotally how many people, but no specific numbers. We have no concrete numbers.
A federal lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison filed that on behalf of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and that was to end the surge.
I would say that everything that we did in those early days actually gave the Trump administration more fodder to target us more. It was as if anything that we said and anything we did was only I don't know. It was like poking the bear. It was making him more angry and justifying more and more actions on his part. And so I do not think that was a part of it. But really, I think the truth of why they stopped was because Minnesotans were so strong and they were so united and they were so unrelentless, relentless in their pursuit of like protecting each other. That is really the reason why they stopped, because they couldn't beat us. That was really why.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we served as a great example,
Yeah.
across the country
Yeah.
in the way that people looked out for each other, community members, and going to the schools and, delivering meals. It was really incredible. And I found that if there was one really positive thing that came out of it, for me, and I would guess for you, was that, the response.
Absolutely. And I remember one day when I was like the person who was unlocking doors at one of our Latinx grocery stores, and there were volunteers who were standing outside of it, and they were looking down the street, and they were telling me, they're like, there's a whole bunch of unmarked vehicles down there, and they have a couple of people surrounded, and some of those people left our spot in front of the grocery store and went down the street, and it was like. We were everywhere. We were showing up everywhere for each other. And it was like nobody had an assignment, but we just knew how to be there and where we needed to go when we needed somebody to go. And it was just an amazing thing to watch this organic thing spring up. And then to have people just intuitively know where they should be and what they should be doing. It was an amazing thing to watch unfold. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Life Unscripted. Hey, I want to tell you about a product that I absolutely love. They are my Cozy Earth pajamas. They are just soft and buttery, and I can't tell you, I would actually prefer to wear them all day long. Now, I've arranged a fantastic discount for my listeners of Life Unscripted. Enter promo code AKLIFE for 21% off any product you purchase at Cozy Earth. Once again, that's 21% off. Go to CozyEarth.com and use promo code AKLIFE, and let's get cozy. You have a really interesting background. I want to get into this because it's pretty fascinating. And we know that you came to the United States from Laos and as a Hmong refugee, and all of this has a personal layer for sure with ICE agents coming in. And your family made a lot of sacrifices. They were fleeing civil war. Talk, if you would, about your personal journey with your family to come here.
Yeah, and I have very few memories. And at my age, it's like I don't remember if there's an actual memory or if it's a memory of a memory. But, I've really been spending a lot of time with my parents now that they're in their 70s and their health is failing. More than ever, I have this desire to really understand like that journey. And, this past year was the first time I sat down with them and said, well, what happened that day that you learned that like we were supposed to leave the country? And it was May 12th. And I remember my parents telling me that like we were trying to get on the airplane. And I had heard about this airplane story, but I didn't know the chronology of the events. And like everybody was pushing. My grandfather was a colonel in the secret war. So like they left right away when Laos fell out, and General Vang Pao told all of his colonels and his military leaders, like, leave the country. Like we've lost the war. But of course, nobody else knew. We didn't have any technology. Nobody knew. And so then because my grandfather then told my mom and my dad, leave. We're all leaving right now. So we were all trying to get into these airplanes. And my sister was on the back of my mother, and because of the pressure of the people, she stopped breathing. So my father pulled us all out of the line, and he gave her CPR, and we missed the planes. So now we have to make it on foot out. And when I listen to this story, I think about like the sacrifices that people made, and like I don't think they really understood the danger that they were in. They knew that they just had to leave. They were just trying to survive, and so and their journey down, and then 2 days it took for us to get to Vientiane, and then how we crossed the river. And, like I always asked my parents, how did you know where to go next? And my mom said, I don't know. We just kept going to the next thing. And then like we figured out how to go to the next place. And I just thought to be these young 20-something, bringing
with
3
babies,
small children, yes, and their entire families with them, and leaving and not knowing what was next. And I think if they could do that, there's nothing that I can't do. Like when we were going through Metro Surge, and I thought, what are we going to do today? And I just kept thinking, just get to the next thing, because you'll figure out where to go from there. Because that's what they did, and they survived. And we're just going to have to survive what's going on right now.
Wow, that is a powerful story. That's incredible. So you have 6 siblings?
Yes.
So big family. Tell me a little bit about them and where you are in the family.
So there was 3 of us born in Laos and 3 of us born in America. So we have Gonu, KAOHLY, Gonzong, which is Kanu, Kali, Kasong. Those are the English translated name. And then we have Paul, Stephanie, and Philip. So, and I'm the second oldest. And so I have these traits of like being an oldest and also being a middle child because I was the middle of first three. But I'm also an oldest of six, a second oldest of six.
Yeah.
But, it's like I never know how to explain sort of my upbringing in my life because like when you don't know that you're poor, you don't know that you're struggling, you're just living life the best that you can. And I didn't know that I was food insecure until I started working at the legislature and I thought, oh, there's a term for that. I just thought everybody ate one meal a day when I was young. You don't know because you don't know what the norm is, right? So I had this upbringing in which at the same time, I was very sheltered and innocent, and I believed in the best of what this world could offer me because I didn't know how bad things were for us. I don't know. So
I guess from a child's perspective, no.
Yeah.
So you came over here when you were just a toddler of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But your Hmong identity, it sounds like it came later. That maybe not necessarily when you were a child.
Because when we came to America in our generation, people wanted you to assimilate. They were not embracing your own culture. So I actually didn't speak Hmong very well. I understood it, but I didn't really speak it until I was, in my 30s. And my Hmong still really isn't as good as I would like for it to be, but it's so much better. Because I also grew up Christian, you sort of give a part of your culture identity up when you're a Christian as well. So I feel like I'm a little bit removed from the identity and was really relearning who my culture, my community, all of that I learned much later in life. But I believe it's made me a better person really having that tie to my people and the community I came from and how we got here.
And the story to get here is really incredible. And when your parents came here, your father owned a restaurant?
He did. So, you struggle. Both my parents worked in blue-collar jobs. They both worked in assembly for a while or, in manufacturing. And then, my father knew that if he wanted a different kind of life, that he had to go make it himself. So he stopped working and we went on public assistance for a bit so that he could go to school. And so we were on welfare and we, had to go to food pantries. And he, after he finished his AA degree, his 2-year degree, he opened up a restaurant. And I grew up as a teenager working in his restaurants. And that's where I was taught hard work. So
yeah. It is hard work in restaurants. You have 2 adult daughters, and I've also learned that your older daughter, and you are black belts. Are you still practicing that?
I try to keep up on the skills. I still work on my nunchuck skills. I practice the basics. I try to stay flexible. But yes, my older daughter and I are both black belts because I thought I'd put these kids in these activities because I knew that they would never have the kind of struggles I did to motivate them to succeed. So I thought, how do you motivate someone to become what they were meant to be and reach their full potential if they don't have those same struggles? So I thought I better learn how to motivate them out of passion and love. And so I joined everything I put them in. And then I became a black belt.
You're a badass. I'm sure you've heard that before.
People say that I feel like I'm so easy breezy, casual, nice. I never feel like I'm a badass.
We're taking a quick break on Life Unscripted, and we'll be right back. One way to elevate your look is by a pair of great eyeglasses. And I have a lot of them. I have prescription eyeglasses. I have sunglasses. Why? Well, because, I need to see, and also to protect my eyes from the bright sunshine. And I have found some very stylish eyewear from Aquila. Here they have eco-friendly frames, so many different colors. We've got classic black, and they are affordable. They're made in LA, but they're not just for movie stars. And I have a great deal for you, for all of my listeners. Just use the promo code AKLIFE, and you will get 10% off. 10% off of any of the frames there at aquila.la. You can also find the deal on my show notes. Just click on that link, and you get 10% off of Aquila Eyewear. I'm going to move on now to, you have been married since January, so 5 months in. And let's talk about your job as mayor and some of the priorities that you've set. I know you've said we're getting back to business, the business of running a city. And how is it going, and what does that mean?
I think it's going really well. And the truth is that I didn't realize how well it was going until I read Twin Cities Business article that they wrote on me. Because we were dealing so much with Operation Metro Surge.
I mean, right out of the gate, that's what you
Yes.
had to deal with.
Absolutely. And so, I would say that getting back to the basics, when I came into this, I decided that I was going to change the way City Hall looked like. So I was the first mayor to change that structure from a mayor, deputy mayor to a mayor and 4 assistant mayors. We didn't add any staff. I didn't increase the budget. Everybody who came in just loved this city, and they were willing to make sacrifices to run the city with me. So we just sort of broke up all of the lines of business into what made sense. So we have a safety and justice assistant mayor. We have a economic vitality assistant mayor, and then we have somebody who oversees sort of like a chief of staff. So we just kind of broke everything up into 4 different lines of business. And while the assistant mayor of public safety and justice and I were working on Operation Metro Surge, Assistant Mayor Nick Dumolinger continued to move the business and my vision forward around making sure that Public Works and our Department of Inspection and our PED, which is Planning and Economic Development, that they continue to work together, because I promised people that we would be a city that you could do business in, which means that licensing and permitting and how we operate our city, those 3 departments have to work really well together, and they weren't as effectively working together. And so there was just all of these ways in which we were changing the organizational structures that we could facilitate business better. And the feedback we've been hearing is that people are getting quicker responses. They are having greater partnership with City Hall, and that we've been able to move business. I mean, we're going to put in, with our partners, $1 billion into downtown St. Paul. We've been working with our county partners, our private partners, our public partners, everyone. And so, we continue to move the operations of the business at the city forward. We're building housing. We are building, developing more units for people to live in. Businesses are opening. We are having people look at our city differently and being bullish on our city. Investors coming in and buying up these buildings that we're selling for pennies on the dollars. I mean, people are excited about what's happening in St. Paul.
And generating taxes,
Yes.
sometimes not always the most popular subject, but you started before you became mayor. You were a finance person. That at least initially was your jam, right? And so you feel comfortable in kind of understanding, and I mean, obviously spending those years in the House of Representatives that you know a little bit about that, and you're with all the different personalities, and you're dealing with money, and then you got a little bit, as far as the legislature, it's a little divided. Yeah. How would you say that has helped you in this process, especially big asks?
I always tell people that the greatest power of the mayor's office is the power to convene. And having relationships at all these levels of government is so important, because as a city, I think a lot of people come to the city because that's where they feel the pain, that's where they experience whatever it is that they're experiencing, the way they live their life. They think it's the city. But sometimes it's the school district. Sometimes it's the county when it's health and human services. Sometimes it's the state when it comes to certain types of programming. Sometimes it's something that happens around immigration. That's at the congressional level, right? But people are feeling it, and they say, what are you going to do, Mayor, right? And so having these relationships have been crucial in our ability to connect resources and people together in order to get them to the right places. So it's been absolutely vital that I have these relationships at different levels of government.
Now, you share a few things with Mayor Jacob Fry of Minneapolis, as far as, for instance, I know that helping people out who have been affected by Operation Metro Surge, people who are given eviction notices, the two of you feel similar about how to handle that. Explain your feeling. I think did you veto a bill, and where does that stand?
There are a lot of different things that have come through both cities, and he and I have a very different makeup of our city councils and sort of the politics of it. And so even though he and I sometimes have very similar feelings about how we run a city, the outcomes might be very different. I will say that I've actually spent quite a bit of my time at the legislature advocating for the $100 million that Representative Zhang and Frazier put together around Operation Metro Surge. I've been at the Capitol advocating for bonding, for money for public safety work. And so I also feel like I can't limit myself to what I think is happening at the city level, that the ways in which I feel about housing, around economic development, around infrastructure, is that I have to have all my partners at the table, which means it can't just be what I'm doing with the city council and at that level. It's how do I bring everybody together to understand that we're moving a city forward, but that city benefits the entire state. And so, our strategy is just a little bit different.
Now, you decided to get into the race after House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were murdered, which was such a tragedy. And I know the two of you were close. That's what spurred you on to become mayor and to run for mayor. And that was like a kind of a quick turnaround.
Super quick, because, the funny thing is, Speaker Hortman and a small group of us used to meet like once a week, during session. And I remembered the small group of us were talking back in like January, February, and I was like saying that I'd been asked to run for mayor, and I was like, I don't know if I would do it. And Melissa said to me, I don't know if I would take the risk to do that. And my two other colleagues were like, I would do it. It's a free chance. Like if you lose, you just come back to the legislature. And we were having this conversation, but it wasn't until Melissa was killed that I really thought about. She always says how like she wouldn't take the risk, but this is a woman who ran for her seat 3 times, right? And it's also somebody who like was willing to put everything on the line to win seats and to be able to do right by people. And she used to always say to us, like, these seats don't belong to us. You got to go out to earn the right to represent people. And she knocked doors. I've never met a harder working person. Like she would track every door, every member knocked. And so like I just thought, you know what? I need to do something to honor what she is saying, is that this seat doesn't belong to anyone. And if you're not going out and knocking doors and listening to people, you have to do that. And so I challenged my predecessor just so that he would go do that. And like I always worked really hard. I knew it was an uphill climb, but I never thought like, I'm going to win this. I just thought I'm going to challenge it because we have to do better to people. We have to do right by people because that's what Melissa taught me. And so I went out and I did it. 3 months before the election, I decided.
Right. And did he feel slighted by that? I mean, I'm sure there was a little friction there, and you felt maybe that some of the suggestions that you had brought to him as far as, hey, government isn't running well, that had to be tough to be in that position, deciding to run against him. But do you still communicate with him? Do you?
We don't anymore, but I mean, that's what's really hard is like I always looked at him as like family because our kids actually went to elementary school together. Yeah. We've known each other when I was a stay-at-home mom. And, I worked for him. And so like it was really hard, but I also believe that when you love each other and you are family and we are the same DFL family, you challenge each other to be better. And that one day I know that because it wasn't for malicious reasons, that I know that we'll figure our way back to each other. Yeah. I'm hopeful of that.
When we come back, we are going to take a look at some of the things that maybe you've learned in this short period of time that you've been mayor, and we'll do that in just a few minutes here on Life Unscripted. I have a brand new skincare product that I want to talk to you about, and it's from Lavindus, and it even has pretty little packaging. I just got back from Arizona where the sun and the heat and the dry air really did a number on my skin, and I always think that serum is the best way to go when it comes to nourishing your skin. And this one is from, you can see, Lavindus Amrutini. This is a pretty little bottle, and it's Luminosity Dewdrop Serum. And it is, what's really wonderful about this is it smells really light and fresh. It's not, those heavy perfumes. You just put a little bit of this on, just kind of dab it on after you, of course, cleanse. And it just makes your skin feel nice and dewy. And we want that, right? It's springtime. And by the way, you can get 21% off if you use the code AKLIFE. Yes, 21% off, Lavindus.com. You'll see the deal. Go to my show notes and get your skin ready for spring. Do you ever have an energy drink and you realize, that's a little bit too much caffeine? Well, here's an idea for you. Aspire. Aspire energy drinks are so yummy. In fact, this one is mango lemonade, and it's delicious. Half the caffeine, and it also has green tea, a lot of great flavors, and I've arranged a great listener discount for you, 20% off if you use the promo code AKLIFE. So 20% off of these Aspire drinks at aspiredrinks.com. You will love feeling inspired with Aspire. So you've only been mayor since January, and you've had a lot thrown at you. Not specifically you, but the community, right? What have you learned? What has been more difficult than you expected it to be at this point?
So interesting because it's so hard for me to put my finger on. A couple of different learnings is that, like as a state representative, your job is to fight for the political, like, values, the ideology that you, and so like I carried super progressive bills. I mean, I was like the chief author of the Equal Rights Amendment. I was the chief author of the fifth tier bill. I eliminated child marriages in the state of Minnesota, and so like I carried super progressive bills. But like at the city level, your job is to run the city. And so I hold all of my values, but I have to remember that at the end of the day, I can't have healthy social programs if I do not have a healthy business and economic, economic vibrancy, right? So like, how do you balance that where you hold people accountable for being a part of the community, but you also want them to do well so that because the more people establish themselves in my city and pay taxes and live here and operate here, the better it is that I can do the social good that I want to in the city, right? So like, how do you balance those things together? And it is a really different skill set to run something versus like to legislate something. They're two very different skill sets. And so it's been a good learning for me to, just kind of like be secure in knowing like I still have my values, even if somebody's like, well, why are you so pro-business? And I'm like, I have to be pro-business. If I want taxes to be paid, I have to be pro-business. If I want housing to be built, I have to be pro-business, right? Because I can't then do all of the social good I want if they're not doing well. And so it's like I still always hold those values with me. And that's a hard thing to explain to people who saw you fighting for your gun bills. I carried one of the gun bills, And so like when they see you and they're like, well, why aren't you doing this anymore? Why didn't you sign this thing? Why didn't you, have this done? It's like, because when I do that, there's also an unintended consequence over here for what I'm trying to do for the social good of everything, It's a tough thing.
Are you optimistic that we'll be able to get to a place where, gun legislation, where we make essentially schools and our community safer and we can enforce some of these laws?
I think this is where I'm really similar to Melissa's, and I am always optimistic that good will always prevail and that it might be a long journey to get there, but we will get there. And this is why I think that it is so important to have relationships, because the gun legislation has to either happen at the state or at the federal level. We pass it at the city level, but there's preemption that prevents us from doing anything with these gun bills at the local level, right? So it's like I will always fight for it, but what I tell people is just because you don't see me doing something specific in the city doesn't mean that I'm not at the Capitol and working with my partners and saying this has to get passed, right? And amplifying those messages and working with our federal representatives and saying this has to get done and bringing those stories to them and showing the data and the statistics and the impact of my community, my city, when these things don't get done. Like, it's a true partnership all around. And so I'm always hopeful.
The stuff that's harder, but then perhaps some things are easier than maybe you thought. What do you find that has ended up coming more naturally to you, would you say, as mayor?
I don't know if anything is easier. I would say I'm not a good politician. I have a short memory and I forgive too easily. But I find, because I was told that like you should remember everything everybody did and you should hold grudges and you should, and then I just
it's exhausting.
I
know.
know.
That. I'm with you on that one.
So then I forgive very easily. And so like that has been really good in this work because, this was a tough race. I had very few endorsements. I had very few people in the beginning like donate and support me. But I had to let all that go because the truth is to make the progress that I want to have happen, I need all of us. So whether you supported me or not, I'm bringing you along with me. Whether you contributed or not, you're part of the solution. So like we're going to work together. And that requires checking all of any kind of emotions or ego or anything aside and saying, we're going to do this together. And so I think that part of my personality and who I am has served me very well. And that's the part that has been a lot easier than I thought that it would be. Because I was really hurt when nobody came out to support me. And I was like, I'm not going to forget this. And then really immediately, I just forgot it. And I just was like, let's do this together.
So how many hours a day would you say you work? And what do you do for fun? What do you do to kind of unwind?
So we work a lot because I always say like we have 3 years to do this, and truthfully, tomorrow's never guaranteed. So like every day I get to wake up and still do this, I'm very grateful. And so like I go 100% all the time. Like last Saturday I had a 16-hour day. My days are mostly 12 to 14-hour days every day, almost 7 days a week. But I would say that to unwind, I love sports and I love working out. Though you can't tell. I love working out.
You're a black belt again.
I am, and I've been lifting. I've been doing a lot of like heavy lifting, and so like I think that's
literally and figuratively.
Yes, yeah. Right, yeah. And so I think that's what I do to sort of unwind and like to really. Like my children, my family, like I just, life is so short. Like love everybody up and do as much as you can for them. And that's what like keeps me centered and helps me unwind.
Wow, you bring a lot of positivity and great energy here to Life Unscripted. Mayor Her, it's a pleasure meeting you and thanks for taking the time today because you are a busy person.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for listening to Life Unscripted. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and write me a review. Let me know what you think of the podcast. And when you buy any of the products and use my promo code AKLIFE, I get paid. And you help support the podcast.